Well, hello everyone. I wanted to offer my review of this watch, and mine is sort of a long-term perspective because I've had this watch for 6.5, almost 7 years now. So I wanted to tell you about how it's held up over the years. Spoiler alert, I really, really love this watch. So let's talk about it. The model is the MTG-900. It's a G-Shock watch, Waveceptor, and tough solar. So G-Shock means it's a tough watch, built, strong. Waveceptor means it's radio controlled or an atomic watch. It has a built-in radio receiver that picks up from WWVB, the atomic clock in North America. And tough solar. This area around the face contains solar cells that charge a battery inside the watch. So you never have to worry about replacing the battery in this watch. At least I haven't had to worry about it in 7 years. All right, get a couple things out of the way. First of all, it is kind of a big watch and it's a little bit heavy. Some people have complained about that. I just figured because it has all those features built in, I can live with the fact that it's large and heavy. It's not so heavy or large that I don't like using it. But just to compare it to a watch that I bought in the early 90s, that's just a regular little nice Casio watch that I found back then. Yeah, this is a lot smaller, thinner, slimmer. Anyway, but let's talk about this one for now. Okay, so just looking at the main features on the face here, you see that this area here is the charge indicator, low, medium, and high. Right now it's on high, and it usually stays on high because exposure to just everyday ambient light is enough to keep the battery charged in there. Okay, next it's got the day of the week. This little bell is a chime indicator, so the hourly chime is activated now. You can have a 24-hour display or the AM, PM 12-hour display. Of course, 6-digit display there. This indicates that the Indiglo feature is set to automatically come on, and I'll tell you more about that in a moment. This is a power save feature here, and this indicates that power save is active. What power save does is, in order to save battery life, when the watch has been in the dark for several minutes and it hasn't moved, because there is a sensor inside there to sense your movement. So the watch is not moved and it's in the dark, the display will go blank to save battery power. And the way to get it to come back on is either to expose it to light again or move it around a bit, and the display will come back to life. So I like to use the power saver mode because it only turns this display off when I wasn't looking anyway. All right, month, date. Right here is a little M to indicate that I've set this display to show the Mountain Time Zone or the Denver Time Zone. And then over here you have indicators showing, that's supposed to be a little radio tower there. It's showing you that the last time it tried to receive atomic time data, it was successful with a full, a good reception, full strength reception right there. That's what that means. Okay, now there are 4 buttons around the watch, here, 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 and here. This is also a button down here with a little G on it, and that activates the Indiglo. So I told you it has automatic Indiglo, and if you hold this button down, you can deactivate the automatic Indiglo. Sorry about the glare there. Or you can reactivate the automatic Indiglo. A little word about the case here. As you can see, the crystal is recessed down here below the edge of the front opening. So if you have a tendency to kind of, bang your wrist against things in your everyday life, you're probably going to hit the edge of this frame, and the crystal will stay pretty much protected because it's down in there. This crystal here is in great shape after, 7 years of use. Okay, the buttons also sort of have, kind of a big frame around them, and the buttons are recessed inside there. So you have to be pretty deliberate about wanting to press the buttons. You have to kind of, dig in there with your finger and really press there. Some people have complained that the buttons are stiff and they're hard to press. I really don't find it to be a problem. Just know that you have to be deliberate about pressing those buttons. So let's go into the different modes here. I press the mode button, and the first mode I'll see is the second time zone. You can choose different time zones using these buttons here. So you can go, London, Paris, back again. You can go here, Rio, New York City, Chicago. So select the time zone you want to display. I've chosen to just leave it on Greenwich time. And then your local time zone is displayed down there. Okay, easy enough. The next mode is the time memo display. So let's just demonstrate this real quick. If I go back to my regular display and I just push this button over here that is labeled time memo. Okay, what that does is it kind of takes a snapshot of the time and date, what was on the display when you made that memo. So if I go back here to now my time memo again, it shows me that I marked the time here, that time there, and it just keeps a record of that for me. Now, I don't know how useful that is to most people. You can mark up to 30 different time memos and look at them later. I don't know. And then here, if you hold this button down here that's marked adjust, you can clear it out and start over again. The next mode is alarm and hourly signal. So right now I've got the hourly signal to go off, and so that's indicated that that's on. I can switch to the other alarms that are set here. So you have, 4 different alarms plus a 5th alarm, which is a snooze alarm. So when this one goes off, you can hit a button and then, 5 minutes later it'll go off again. So one of those is a snooze alarm. So lots of alarms there for you. Stopwatch mode, of course, that, very useful. Hours, minutes, seconds, and hundredths of a second. And you also have the, split timer, lap timer there. And you can stop it and reset. And back to normal mode. So now let's talk about setting the watch. This is the adjust button here. If I did not have good reception here, then I could manually set the time by holding this button down. And well, first of all, this is where I can set the time zone for the local time. So if I said, well, I'm going to Chicago, or I'm going to LA, for example, I push it and all of a sudden that shows me that it's going to display, those different time zones. Okay, back to home here. You'll notice that when I did that, it erased the reception information. So right now it's still holding the same time based on the last time it received, but it's indicating that it has not received anything since I changed the time zone. Now if I push the mode button from here, I can tell it whether or not I want it to show daylight saving time, and in this case I've told it to just automatically display whether or not we're on daylight saving time. But you can also set that to be, let's see, either off or on or auto for daylight saving time. Okay, push mode again. And this tells me that I do have it set to automatically receive the atomic time information, and it will attempt to receive several times a night after midnight up until about 5 a.m. Every hour on the hour it's going to try to receive its time information. Now let's say I wanted to adjust the time manually and not wait for the radio control reception to kick in. First I'd hold down the adjust button until that starts blinking. I push that adjust button again, and this is where I can tell it whether or not I want 12-hour or right, that's the right button, 12-hour or 24-hour mode. But then if I push the mode button down here, then it would allow me to manually set the time. So if I push these buttons here, I can reset that to 0, push mode again, could set the hour, minutes, the year, month, and date. And then let me press mode one more time. And this allows me to select whether or not I really want the power save mode to be on. That's the one that makes the display go blank when the watch is supposedly not being used. So those are the main features there. I'll push the adjust button again, and now I'm back to normal. You can manually tell it when to receive WWVB if you don't want to wait for it to do it automatically overnight. And what you do is you push and hold that button, and then it tries to receive. I don't think it's going to work here because I'm inside the house in a place where reception probably isn't very good. But if it were successfully receiving, you would start to see down in this display, you'd start to see some bars indicating good reception. You may have noticed before I did that, see if I can get out of this mode. Okay. Before I did that, if I were to just press and not hold the receive button, it's telling me that the last time it was successful to get the radio control information was at 3:04 a.m. and that's today. So if you're curious, well, when's the last time it worked? Just tap this button, and if you then hold this button, then it will, let me do that again, hold the button. Now it starts to try to receive from WWVB. And you can see right there where it started to show, well, I get a little bit of reception, but it's not great right now. I think my video equipment is probably interfering with the ability to receive. Now, before I close this, I want to tell you a little bit about the watch band or the bracelet, because this trips a few people up. I've read some reviews online. People are upset about this. They feel like this is hard to adjust. So let me demystify that a little bit. Now, first of all, you have these 3 little holes here, which allows for some fine tuning of the size of the watch band. Just by comparison, here's a watch I got back in the 80s. And for the fine tuning of the watch band size, you got several holes there. So as you move this part of the watch band closer in, you would make it suitable for a smaller wrist. Well, this only has 3 of those, so it's not quite as adjustable. But if you did want to adjust that, you can just use something small to push in there. What you're going to find here is one of these standard kind of spring-loaded pins that you would be familiar with if you've worked at all with watch bands. So that little spring-loaded pin, you get it inside the appropriate holes here on either side of this clasp, and you can adjust whether you want it to be there, there, or there. So you got a little bit of fine tuning there. If you need to do any more fine tuning to make this watch band larger or smaller for your wrist, well, then you have to add or remove links. And this gets some people tripped up a bit, because how do you get to the links? How do you add and remove links from this watch band? Okay, let me see if I can give you a quick demonstration. You have, similar to these spring-loaded pins, just a different size, here under these little arrows that you see on the watch band links. So you got to get a really small something, like a little jeweler's screwdriver, where you can really get in there. And this might be difficult to see on the video, but you want to be able to just squeeze in there and catch the edge of one of those pins and just kind of push it down. Okay, and it was in fact tricky to try and do it in a way that would be easily seen by the video camera, but let me just show you now that I've done that. See how that's just a link there with, again, one of these little spring-loaded pins. I guess it only comes out the one side. So that's what you're looking for, trying to loosen that up in order to adjust the watch band. If you have trouble, maybe go to a local jeweler that can help you with that. So then in order to, once you've either decided you're going to add or take away links, you'll have to get to that pin on more than one link. Then you just line it up, and again, this is going to be tricky to do in a way that the video camera can see, but I want to be able to compress this spring back down to fit in between the edges of this link. Okay, there, I've done it. I've managed to put it back together. So again, it's like this pin here, but it's smaller, and it fits right there on the edge of the link. And this is something that a professional jeweler, even maybe someone who does watches at the mall, would probably have the tools and the experience to get to that a little easier than I could. But even I can loosen that link so I can get the link, add or subtract links by just working with the pin in there. Okay, and that worked. I'm not the slickest person when it comes to managing those little pins, but even I was able to get that all put back together. The clasp itself, I'll just show you here. You got this little tab here with a little notch up there, and when you fold the clasp down, that goes into this hole here, and eventually gets stuck in between those little pieces of metal there. So that's where that clasps shut. Holds pretty well. In order to take the watch off, you push these together, and that releases that little tab there. So now a couple more notes quickly about this watch. First of all, this watch is being replaced by a new version that Casio has just released. And the main differences between this version and the new version is that this time memo function here that I thought was a little bit hard to imagine why I would need that, well, that's been replaced. Now it's more of a standard countdown timer instead of the time memo function. So that seems a lot more useful to most people. The other thing that the new version offers, rather than just synchronize with the North American WWVB atomic clock, it has the ability to receive from multiple international sources. So if you happen to be in Japan or China or Europe, you would be able to receive your atomic time from the local transmitters there. So if you happen to be doing a lot of world traveling, I guess that's important. Otherwise, let me tell you, this watch here, you can still find this version for about $100, maybe somewhere between $90 and $100 in a lot of places, everywhere from Amazon to Walmart. In fact, most of the Walmarts I go to locally have this in stock. So if you're concerned about, is it too heavy, is it too big, why don't you go down to your local Walmart and see if they have this right there on the shelf, and have them, hand it over to you so you can hold it in your hand and see what you think of it. And one more note, let me just quickly demonstrate the Indiglo feature. If I push this button here labeled G, then you get the Indiglo. But it also has an automatic sensor, so since I've got it on automatic Indiglo, as I demonstrated earlier, what it does is it senses the movement of your wrist. So when you turn the watch as it would be on your wrist, it will automatically turn on the Indiglo for just a second or two. Do that again. So you get that automatically, which is kind of nice at night. If you don't want to press the button, all you have to do is turn your wrist, and there you go. You can see what time it is. So that's kind of cool. Of course, as with most watches, if you use the Indiglo feature a lot, you may have a tendency to drain the battery. But that hasn't been a problem for me because the battery is rechargeable. And So I just make sure the watch gets plenty of light otherwise, and I'm just fine with that. If you ever do need to change the battery, Casio recommends that you use their special rechargeable lithium battery and not just any old rechargeable lithium battery. I haven't had any trouble in 7 years with needing to replace the rechargeable battery inside this watch, but I think if I did have to do that, it would definitely be worth the trouble to go to an authorized Casio repair facility where they could switch that battery out for me, and I know there wouldn't be any trouble with it. I like this watch, and I wore this almost exclusively, even though I have other watches, right? But once I got this one, I pretty much wore this exclusively for about 7 years until I decided I liked the Waveceptor atomic clock function. I liked the solar recharging function, but I wanted to try something that maybe, just for variety's sake, was not digital. That's why I now have this other one, and I'll do a review of this one some other time.